Good morning, everyone, and happy Thursday. I'm glad you're all with us. We are here again, going to have some discussion over a few items and give you an update. I hope that you did receive the letter that went out to you yesterday, and we'll be doing that going forward so that we can continue to keep you updated on what's going on. The next ones will have a little bit more focused agenda to them. But again, we're going to be doing a lot of communicating and using every vehicle that we have afforded to us to make sure we can keep you up to date. So again, welcome. Glad you're here with us this morning, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So we've got an agenda this morning where we're going to update on reopening. We're going to talk a little bit about reporting. I do want to spend some time, again, over a slide over competitive grant. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about a follow-up review that is scheduled for September 14th and 15th. We have some rollover information, enrollment update, and we're going to be finishing with some information that's needed about an update to COPA that we need everyone to definitely be utilizing and understanding that it is required, that this is how we will be capturing attendance as we go forward. So let's go ahead and get started with the next slide, Tom. Thank you. And again, good morning. This is Rachel Burgess Burnett, Deputy Commissioner here at Children's Services Division. With me, I have
and Tiffany Junkins, Manager of Family and Support Programs. We also have
Tom Mose helping out with technical, doing this for you guys for remote today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. So again, just want everyone to know that, we thank you. We know that this has been a very, very difficult time these last months since June, trying to get everything situated, getting sites open, getting children in classrooms. The information that I'm sharing with you as of this week, and I'm saying this week, meaning that when we were about to do rollover, I want you to understand where we were. We had 261 sites that had opened up their doors, doing classroom and or remote learning with their children, which accounted for about 779 classrooms, and that included our family child care home sites as well. But what we wanted you to know is we've got a huge number of classrooms and sites that are operating out there. And so as we're launching into this new program year, we're looking at where we were and looking at that as our gear for going forward, because we should be opening again. Community colleges had a couple of more to come online. We recognize that a couple of our charter schools just came online this week as well. And so the numbers are constantly increasing. More children are being served in classrooms. We thank you for everything you're doing, but understand for our funders, we're having to capture and keep up with this information as we go forward. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. We know that you're serving both in classroom and virtual, and that you're doing virtual home visits. We're going to be giving a little bit more information through guidance documents, again, so that you have something in your hand that you can share with your staff, so that everybody understands exactly what it is that we're requiring this, everyone is doing this program year. None of us could have, designed this where we would start a program year and still in the midst of COVID-19, and we understand some of the difficulties with that. But we want to do is make sure that we're all on board, understanding what some of the difficulties are and some of the things that you're seeing that may very well be impacting your ability to operate. And so what we did, we launched a survey, and we did leave it open in case people have not responded. But as of yesterday, when I looked at it, we had 53 that had responded. And of the 53, 33 said that they were anticipating staff issues. What we do know is staff have the ability to request during this time that they have emergency leave. And that is something that is out there, and staff are requesting it. We also understand that, parents who have children in Chicago Public Schools are also your staff and your child care centers. And so we want to know, and we will be following up on what's our plan as we're seeing these issues, what's our plan for operations. What are you doing? Is this making a difference? One of the questions was, is it making a difference for the number of classrooms? And some of you did say, in fact, that you did anticipate moving children that would have been center-based into remote learning. And as we're making those decisions, we have to still keep up with every one of those enrolled children, either center-based or remote, and be able to account for their attendance. One of the other survey questions that we put on there was about resources, wanting to know what kind of resources people are saying that they still need out in community. And this is what we got back. We did have 23 of the 53 who said that they needed housing and rental assistance. One of the things that went out earlier this summer was an opportunity to assist individuals in community with rental assistance. I do know that that portal has closed. It'll open again, and we hope that other people are applying for rental assistance through the resources that are out in community. The community service centers, 10 South Kedzie, and the one on King Drive, Cottage Grove, those are still open, and there's access there for parents who are needing rental assistance. So I just want to make sure that people understand that there's some access points outside of Department of Family and Support Services, but I also know some of you have some assistance as well that you are actually helping your families with as well. Another one, 25 out of 53 said mental health resources. We are hoping that you are engaging with your mental health providers and making sure that they are offering support services to your staff and to your families. We're going to be working with our mental health provider to make sure that we can do more engagement as well. What I also do know, even in your quality dollars that you were asking for, many of you had some very, very creative ways that you were thinking about working with your families as well and using those dollars to support more hours for mental health for your operations. And so there's multiple ways. We're hoping that people have community resources that they're aware of. What we want is to make sure that you know that we're here. If there's any additional resources or identifying resources, anything that we can do to assist, please reach out. We understand through this time that this is a very, very hard hardship on everyone. Many individuals are finding themselves right now going through a very, very difficult time with stress, with trying to make decisions for family in this particular time. And so mental health support is one of those that we definitely want to make sure it is accessible and available. One of the other things that we also know, we did trainings on trauma informed because we wanted everyone to start thinking about embedding some of those practices in their services for their children and families. Because again, we know how hard this is and people need to be connected with. And so through your work with your family support staff, we hope that you're in touch with your families and finding out exactly how they're doing and then making referrals. And if you need some additional resources for referrals, please let us know. Another one was food and nutrition. We do know that now that you're doing remote learning for some of your children, I hope you understand with your food service programs that you can feed the children that are in your classrooms, and you can also work with your vendor or your staff to do grab-and-go meals for families that are in remote learning. Some of you have been doing that, and we encourage you to do so, is that you use what you have as far as your resources to continue to do some of that. And again, as we have when we found additional resources, we've put that out there, letting people know that here's some resources for families. We know the food banks are doing everything they can in stretching and doing everything in community, and we'll continue to give you information on that. Formula, diaper, and wipe. We know that we did a couple of emergency responses for formula, diapers, and wipe. We also know that if you're providing early Head Start, you're required to have those supplies on hand for your families. And so if there's additional needs, what we will do, and again, I will need to go out again, as I did before, working with a partner to see who we might be able to access if there's more emergency needs. And so again, that one we can follow up on. But again, it's making sure that we have some idea of what kinds of support services you need. So as we're hearing about them around the city, as we know things are changing, that we can gear up and get that information to you as quickly as we possibly can. What's Mario asking? I can't see.
Mario asked about how many sites do we have. So the 261 sites that are open, but that's out of how many sites. And then he's also asking about the classroom. How many classrooms do we have total, so that he understands the ratio of the 261 and the 779.
And I don't have that in front of me right now, Mario. I will get back to you on that again, because again, we're looking at all of our sites and all of our programs across and making sure that we know all of the changes. We did some slot reallocation and some other things as well.
And rollover
as well. So there's a lot that has happened.
New classrooms.
And new classrooms and things like that. So we will get back to you, Mario, and tell you 261 out of what and 779 out of what as well. Next slide. So again, reporting COVID-19 is still the responsibility of all of you, notifying and doing everything that you're supposed to do, and we do know that is actually occurring. One of the things that we want to remind you is you still need to make sure your staff and families are aware. And when we say staff and families, if you have a positive case within your site, your parents who are remote, and so in your informing families, inform globally to make sure that everybody understands, because whether you do or not, families talk, and you want to be the communicator and not have it be communicated otherwise and through other venues. So again, we want to make sure that your policies are such that you are communicating, but you're communicating globally. We've been looking at this data, tracking it, and are going to do a summary report. We wanted to do a cutoff date so that we could say from starting program in June through the end of August, just before we got ready to roll over, what did it look like? So we've pulled our data, we're going through it, we're collecting it, and we will be doing a summary report to give you an idea of what it has looked like. What we do know is based on the number of sites that we have, number of classrooms, the numbers are what would be considered small. And I will say that we have had no incidents of spread throughout this time. But again, we will be giving a report that will give you more summary information about what's been happening with COVID-19 reporting in our sites, those funded by DFSS. We have access to our own data. What I will not have is access to the data for the state of Illinois, but I will share with you what we've been collecting and what information that we have. I know people want to know that, and so again, I just want you to know we're finalizing that and we'll get something out to you. Next slide. So again, as a reminder, we are in competitive status for our Head Start, Early Head Start grant. Previously, we talked and we said Early Head Start CCP. We no longer will be doing a competitive application for Early Head Start Child Care Partnership. We're very pleased and happy about that. But we will be doing a competitive grant application for Head Start, Early Head Start. We do know that also Office of Head Start has delayed the actual posting date to October 7th with a submission date of December 7th. Many of you are tracking that data and are aware, but for those of you who aren't, I just wanted to make sure that you have that. It is in competitive status. I want to remind you the competitive status for our grant is due to reports of failure to report incidents within the time frame that we set, and that was that we needed everything to come to us immediate, and we got a report that did not come to us immediate and went to the grantee before coming to us, and it was also regarding an incident and injury to a child. And so with those being the kinds of occurrences, it sent it directly into what could have been this status, and we're here now. We will be in contact with all of you regarding our grant application and having conversations with you. I've had a couple of conversations with a few of you, but we will be contacting our delegates to discuss with you this process, answer your questions, because we know you have some of us regarding this application, and to also talk to you about what it is and your interest in going forward. We will, again, it is our plan to submit a competitive application, and so I just want people to know that we will be in contact with you. We will have staff trying to set up calls with you, with Tiffany, with myself, with the commissioner. We want to make sure that we're having conversations with all of you. So just want you to know that we will be in contact. And again, just as a repeat, we do know that instead of a September date, it will be coming out October 7th, and the new anticipated submission date is December 7th. So as a result of what I just talked about, us being in competitive status, we worked with the training and technical assistance team We created a quality improvement plan as a result of what occurred, meaning these health and safety violations and failure to report. As a result of that, we are now going to have a follow-up review. A follow-up review to the occurrence, a follow-up review to our ability to respond to what we've done in response to the incident, what changes, what procedures, what policies, and how things are different in our way of working together, both from the grantee and the delegate. The dates for the review, September 14th and September 15th, which is Monday and Tuesday of next week. Our quality improvement plan actually closed on August 31st. They immediately set time for the September 14th and 15th review. And so they want to go ahead and get it done very quickly. Again, this is Head Start. This is, again, in response to failure to report and the health and safety violation and injury to child. And so with that said, we are, and we submitted a huge amount of documentation yesterday to the follow-up review team for the one that's going to happen on Monday the 14th. We are submitting an additional large amount of documents for the review. It's happening on Tuesday the 15th. And that we're sending is inclusive of the memo that was sent out that, and I went over at an EDPD meeting where we said that we needed everybody to immediately review, to report. We changed our cell 2.0. We put language in there that said immediate reporting. I know the staff has been in contact with delegates talking about immediate reporting, and we want to make sure that everybody understands that that's how we're engaging with you, and that's what has been our expectation of all of you. We put in a template for everyone to respond to.
In addition to that, if you take a look at your CARES contracts, we've also embedded language within your contracts that talks about the reporting requirement being immediate. We use that exact language in there to define what immediate was, and that's being defined as same day. So we're hitting this from a lot of different angles, and I'm glad that, many months ago, Rachel made this a very poignant point to keep talking about this, keep talking about what the responsibility was from our delegates reporting up to the grantee. And so we want to keep talking about this, and we put it in the contract to let you guys know just how serious this is. And we expect everybody to follow this immediate reporting.
Absolutely. And so we know that people have been using it. We also know that we've gotten one or two that were delayed, but we can't do that. Immediate to us means immediate, same day. We did put in there that the immediate is contacting us to let us know that something has occurred, and then you follow up with a written report, because we understand you do need to get your incident report. You need to put everything in a document and then submit to us. But it has to be followed. Procedures have to be followed. And so they are aware of what our system is. They'll be looking to see if the system is being followed and whether or not these kinds of things have occurred, not just at the agency where the incident occurred. And I will say, through our technical training and technical assistance, when we had time to work with them, we actually had delegates come in through those training opportunities as well, those that have been involved or engaged in incidents, so that they could hear and understand exactly what it was we were doing. But we've continued the work across all of our time since this has started to talk about it. And again, to Tiffany's point, we had a whole conference on health and safety in November where I spent that morning talking about this and talking about not wanting us to continue down this road and these things to occur. But with that said, we are here now. We do have a follow-up review on the 14th and 15th. As I said, we submitted documents yesterday and submitting more documents yesterday and today, so that we are in preparation and ready for the review. It is virtual. They're not coming out to any sites. We will be doing this virtual, but still it is a follow-up review. And we don't take that lightly. We know that we have a responsibility to be responsive. We know that we have a responsibility to be able to show them everything that we've put in place as a result of this. And to Tiffany's point, all the way through to your contracting, where you will be signing saying at the highest level that you understand accepting this contract means that you understand immediate reporting to your grantee. Next slide. So as a result of the health and safety violations, we instituted policies and procedural changes, and we've gotten those out to you, and we required you to do the same. And so within our system, we were saying immediate, we needed you to say immediate. If you're a delegate with partners, your partners needed to understand the immediacy of them reporting to you so that you could report to us. We know that we've put these things in place. We know it's being followed because we can see what's happening. But again, we are in the midst of a review where we will need to show that these things are continuing to occur. We require changes in your policies, one of which, for example, was standards of conduct, that your staff are signing off on standards of conduct, that they understand corporal punishment will not be allowed, for example. And so we know that those were happening. We know that our staff were reaching out and getting and seeing that these things were done. Staff were signing off on them, that we saw changes in your HR policies and your procedures. And so I thank you for your responsiveness in doing the things that we were asking. So we know some of these things have been done, but I'm saying all of this to you today because in the follow-up review, we are submitting all of our documentation to show what we've done. We're showing documentation on what it is that you've done from the data and documents that we've collected from you. But what that also means is they can ask you, the delegate, to submit a document. They could say to us in the middle of the review that we want agency X policy. We want agency X to document how they do criminal records check. They could say agency X, we want information on transportation, pedestrian safety and training. They can ask for that. They are well within their right to ask for more than what we are presenting, but we have covered every one of the points in the documentation that we're giving. But again, it's within their rights, and so that's why I'm saying to you that I need you to be prepared. If the reviewer informs us of any documentation request, this will require an immediate response from you. We won't have days to get this back to them. If they ask for something on Monday, we will be in contact with you immediately to say the review team has asked for X, and we need it submitted to us right away so that we can get it to them. If they ask for something on Tuesday, we will come directly out and let the delegate that they've identified know that this is what it is that they're asking for. We're covering our bases by submitting documents in advance, showing all of what we know that's happening, both here at the grantee level and at the delegate level as well. But that doesn't preclude them from saying, but we want an additional document. So I'm giving you a heads up. And so your staff need to be prepared to receive a call and then need to be prepared to submit whatever is being asked. Again, this is about health and safety. This is about your HR policies and procedures that we were asking everyone to update. Everyone knows that they needed to do safety, transportation safety, pedestrian training, all of those kinds of things. So you should have the kind of documentation that I'm asking for. It shouldn't be something that you need to go and create. But again, it will require an immediate response, and it will require an immediate transition of the documents from you to us. This is a virtual review, and so we will be asking for things to be scanned into us. Now, I will say also, one of the things is about health and safety is how our children being treated in classrooms, because again, this was about an incident. And so they have the ability to say, could you have a delegate do a videotape of a child interaction in a classroom? Not saying that they would, but if we got something like that, we would, in case, get in touch with you. What we would do is give you some insights in what it is that they're looking for. Of course, you have policies and procedures that all children, for example, cannot be videotaped. We understand all of that. And so we would be working with you. But again, this is a review. You've been through a review before. We're going through a review again. And we just want everyone to be prepared and understanding what the acknowledgements are from the review team. They did give us a list of documents they were looking for, and we responded to those by sending a group yesterday, and we'll send a group tomorrow. So a lot of it is covered. They may not have to ask for anything. We may have given them enough, but we won't know that until we're in the middle of the review. So I'm giving you a heads up that they may want an additional one from someone as documentation. So, and if you have any questions, I'm here at the office today and can receive calls, can receive emails for anyone that has a question about any of what I've just gone over. So enrollment update, just so you know, since rollover, I'm keeping an eye on enrollment, and again, just trying to see where we are. And I looked at COPA just before coming in. For example, Head Start, there were 2,394 children that were enrolled in Head Start. And for PFA, there was 1,843. That was just before coming into the room to do this webinar. As you can see, our number for Head Start, 6,470, is where we were pre-COVID. And so we've got a long way to go. I understand we're in the midst of rollover. I understand your staff are in the system and updating. Every time I look, the numbers go up. So this is a thank you first for everything that you're doing and getting all of your children into the COPA data system. All children, all programs, all models need to be enrolled so that we can reflect them in our reports to our funders. And so what I'm saying is we know that we're post rollover, just a day or two. Continue the work. We know we've got a lot more to do. I thank you for everything you've done so far. Just make sure that you're talking to your staff, that they're keeping this enrollment going, that we can get all of our families in the system. Again, enrollment is all children, those that are in your classroom center-based and those that you're serving remote across all models. All children should be enrolled in COPA.
One thing I want to mention too, as Rachel and I were keeping a close eye on enrollment numbers, some children within some of our programs, they are mistagged. And, you know, with the funding sources, I've identified some of those to my staff. Some, for instance, they're still being marked under RTL, for instance. RTL funding, you know, we want to make sure that you're tagging them appropriately. There's some that are still being tagged under bridge funding. And so we know that that funding has ended. And so I'm going to ask you to make sure that you're working with your COPA administrators so that children can be tagged appropriately. If we have them in the wrong funding, then it's a problem in how we report these numbers. And so I understand that some data is skewed because they're being tagged inappropriately. And I will have my staff following up with you guys directly.
Let's go through the last couple of slides and we're going to come back to questions. Thank you.
All right, so last month, pretty excited, we wind up telling you about some things that we were doing as a direct result of COVID-19 and really trying to make sure that we were meeting your needs. Attendance policy updates was one of those things. And so we do require attendance to be entered into COPA on a daily basis. One of the features that we've added was the remote attendance option. So that option is there for you. I just wanted to alert you that when you check on remote attendance, it's automatically going to prompt so the RA option will automatically prompt attendance option as well. So don't be alarmed by that. If you click remote attendance and the A for attendance also lights up, that's okay. In our last, in the CSD update we published August the 12th, we put out guidance that also has screenshots in it. So please make sure that you take a look, whoever the COPA administrator is, that they understand, you know, how they can be guided through this process. In addition to that, the remote learning option that's been embedded in there for remote learning services, we've also put a temperature check in the attendance portal so that when you're doing daily attendance, you can also do daily temperature checks. So for any temperatures that 100.4, well, that's below 100.4, then you're checking. Anything that's above 100.4, then the child shouldn't even be admitted into the program. And I hope that that's being consistent across the board. But this is a great place every day so that if a child's coming face-to-face to your program, that you're doing those temperature checks and you're recording them. One of the things I do want to say about temperature checks, we're only allowing temperature checks to be entered into COPA the same day. So it's not something that you can catch up with. So as you guys know, if you've been in COPA for attendance, you can go back and do weekly attendance. So if you haven't been keeping up day to day like we want you to, what's not going to be available are temperature checks, because temperature checks are something that should be done immediately. that same day. And a child shouldn't be admitted if that's, if they're exceeding 100.4. With that being said, we don't want you to go back on a temperature check. So it can only be done same day. The other thing that I want you to be aware of is if you're doing a weekly attendance, don't update everybody at once, because the breakfast, lunch, and snack is going to automatically light up too. And if you're doing remote attendance, then we're not counting meal service. So I want to make sure that you're not recording inaccurate data. So be careful with that weekly attendance feature that's in there, but it is accessible and available for you. Just make sure that you're kind of watching that information. So the new attendance policy, like I said, it's been updated. It's available for you. Hopefully this is going to be friendly for us as we kind of walk into this hybrid approach of virtual learning and also in classroom, face-to-face, whether it's family, child care, home, or classroom, that this is going to meet your needs. The other thing I wanted to mention about COPA is your responsibility in it. We put something in the CSD update this week that talked about administrative tips. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that COPA is something that we need you guys to monitor. One of the tips was talking about contacting your COPA administrator. So as leaders, I need you to ask your COPA administrator to run you a user list. You should know who has access to your COPA, right? Your COPA information, because this is information that should be private. And anytime you are losing a staff or staff is separating from employment, I hope that we're updating COPA the way that we should be, right? And that we're not wasting time on that, and that we're adjusting those rights and privileges, that we're making people inactive who should be. So I'm going to challenge all of my leaders out there today to get a copy of your user list, go through it, question any users that, that should be questioned. I want you to know who has access to your COPA information, and it's going to start with that. So make sure that you're communicating with your COPA administrator.
Thanks, Tiffany. Next slide.
All right, so this is a question that was posed by one of the agencies, and I thought this would be great to kind of share with everyone, especially as, our federal programs do have a non-federal matching requirement. So as it relates to non-federal match and remote learning. So the question was, can a parent's time during remote learning be counted as non-federal share? And so the quick answer is yes. The other technical things that I just want to remind you of is that any non-federal match has to meet a certain criteria. And so these are the criteria that it has to meet. It has to be verifiable within your records. And so, are you able to document, right, that parent's time? That's going to be important for you to be able to document that information. And not to mention how you value that. But also, it can't be included as contributions on any other federal awards either. And then, is it necessary and reasonable? Working with your children during remote learning, I'm going to say it's absolutely, unequivocally, it is, definitely necessary and reasonable for the accomplishment of our program. And so this one is without a doubt. And it has to be allowable under uniform guidance and cost principles, and it is. And it can't be paid by the federal government under another federal award. And then last but not least, all costs must be included in your contract budget. It must be reviewed and approved by DFSS. And so, how we begin the year with our budgets may not necessarily be how we're going to end the budget. So if you guys need to make budget modifications to make sure that even your non-federal match or even your federal match, right, that we're putting our funds where they need to be, that's okay. We want you to go ahead and get it right. So modifications because of this is, we're expecting that to happen. One of the things I wanted to mention was we understand through reading a lot of the guidance from HHS that we have some waivers. And, we're grateful for those waivers. But one of the things I want to say is we have to still make every effort. We have to make every single effort to go ahead and meet our federal obligations. And so just because we have a waiver for something like non-federal match, that doesn't mean that we just say, forget it and we quit on it, right? We still have to go ahead and make sure that we are making every effort to get there. And that's going to be critical across the board with all of our federal mandates and our state mandates as well. So I hope this has been helpful. The non-federal match and remote learning, we value parents' time, and we know that they're spending a lot more time engaging with their children as they're assisting them through e-learning activities. And so we appreciate that, and we want to make sure that you're aware that this does count as non-federal match.
Thanks, Tiffany. And that is, one of those questions, and I thank you for also reminding, yes, we have a waiver for the non-federal match or the federal match, but we still have to do everything. We can't just say, no, we weren't able to get any. We have to show that we've attempted. Here's one where for all of you who have Head Start, Early Head Start, CCP, and expansion, who are working with parents that are doing remote learning, know that you can use that parent's time, but again, documenting how you're doing that, and then it is definitely reasonable, and it is definitely necessary, and yes, it is allowable. So thanks again, Tiffany. And so I know that there are questions. We're going to move into questions and answers right now. So let's go to what questions we have. One update I'll give you, I did send out the letter that I put out. It did have the next date for our next meeting, which is the 24th of this month. I did put in the letter that I sent saying that there is an education advisory meeting on the 16th where they're going to go over information regarding outcomes and capturing data for the outcomes assessment that we will be doing our fall outcomes report this fall. I know we did not do spring, but it is our intent to have a fall baseline report done. They're going to cover information on that at the EDPD meeting. They're going to talk about the 45-day requirements as well, and we'll be getting other information out. As I started off, I'm going to finish my talk and then get into questions that we're going to be communicating with you as we go through this process, updating and giving you information as we receive it, as we've been doing before. I will say, sitting here today, I don't have an update from HHS regarding fiscal flexibilities for anything new. What I do have still states September 30th of 2020. And so if we get something new, as soon as we do, just like we did before, we will publish that for you. Right now, the fiscal flexibility is through the month of September. They are asking out as all your remote learning. As a result of that, COPA has been updated. You are required to do that attendance in COPA so we can pull that report, because it will need to be reported to our funders. And so whatever staff make sure in classrooms, and also those that are being served remote. Can't stress it enough, and we'll be monitoring and keeping track of it, and we will be reporting it to HHS as well. And so for questions, we're going to go ahead and get started.
There is a question from Rosaria. Are you planning to include all your current delegates in your proposal for recompetition? We will be, as I said earlier, Rosaria, what our intent is to reach out to all of our delegates to see, again, what's your interest. I'm not going to make the assumption that 100% of my delegates want to go forward with Head Start, Early Head Start, right now. I won't make that assumption, but what I will say, Rosaria, is we're going to be in touch with our delegates and have conversations with you about what it is we're planning and asking about interest from our delegates. And so that was one of the statements I made earlier. I have spoken with a couple of our delegates, and we will be speaking with others, asking the same question.
Will they be coming to sites? I think I answered that. I think that's in reference to
The review.
It's virtual. They won't be coming to sites. We will be in virtual land with them on 2 days. But again, a reminder, they have the ability to ask for additional documentation outside of the hundreds and hundreds of pages that we're submitting right now that we scanned into them. They still can go and say, we want an additional piece.
Yeah, and Cindy has a question about COPA. The question is, there's an option in COPA now for Head Start with PFA with certificate. Should I choose that or just stick with Head Start with PFA? And so what I'm going to say, Cindy, is we need to know what you need, right? And so I'm not sure if with certificate, if that's applicable to that particular child. We want you to have all options that's available to make the right choice for the child being enrolled. If there's something that's not there that needs to be, then I need you to let me know. We can work with Craig to go ahead and get the option that you need in COPA for your selection. So don't pick certificate if the child actually doesn't have a certificate, I guess is what I'm saying. But feel free to reach out to me so that we can make sure that you get what you need. There's another question by Cindy. Can you send guidelines to know which program options to be tagged? Yes, reach out to me, Cindy, so that I can see what you need and we can go from there.
Our numbers at Holy Family are down 50%, despite our calls to parents asking them to enroll. Is this the norm at other sites, and where are the children? Any ideas on how to get them back? Many parents do not want virtual learning for their 3-year-old children. This is one of those that we know has been a consistent piece as we've gone through this over the last few months, where every one of our parents did not come back, and that's what we've been asking everyone, is to reach out to every one of your parents and let them know what it is that you are available to do with and for them. We understand we have parents that are unemployed right now and that are home with their children. We understand that we have individuals who have found other individuals because of COVID-19 to be supervisors over their children. And so, again, we can talk a little bit more and we can reach out and have a conversation, you, Tiffany, and I, about your concern about your enrollment. But it is something that we've seen through the process. Some people got all of their families back and some others weren't as successful. Enrollment and recruitment is still something that we need to be doing. If parents aren't coming back to your program, we ask that you continue to recruit and find other parents that are interested in being served. It's very, very hard. 3- and 4-year-olds are very hard to serve virtual. But I will say there's been a lot of very creative things that teachers have been doing with children, with book readings, with different activities, with children that have really gained and grabbed their attention and kept them going and doing various activities, given parents a lot of different ideas on things they can do with and for their children while at home with them as well. And so let's have a conversation and see what you feel your impacts are and how we might be able to suggest some other things that you might be able to do. Again, we have seen other programs that did not get all of their children back.
Megan wanted to know, are we required to put our temperature checks in COPA? Can we use our own system instead? Megan, if you guys have already been using something that sits outside of COPA, I mean, you can continue to use that. I think that one of the things I just want you guys to be aware of course, is the liability with this. And you know, we made something that's available for all of our delegates in there right by attendance. If you're going to do attendance anyway, you can actually check, it's a checkbox, right? And so either you've done it or you haven't. And I think that it's something quick and easy. It's not something that's going to be an administrative burden. We're going to be asking that you do, that you go ahead and do what's in COPA. You could still use this other thing. But if you're coming face to face, it is just another thing to help protect yourself to say, hey, if this child didn't have a temperature coming in and you've marked that, and then later, you know, a fever does present itself, then you have documentation to be able to cover yourself to, you know, to at least document what happened upon entry. I think that's important. I would say, more documentation in and around this is better than less. But you're not required to do it. We didn't write it that way. This is a tool for you to assist you during COVID-19 and this pandemic.
Right. And we understood everybody didn't have a system, so we wanted to make sure that we opened it up broadly so that everybody had access to somewhere where they could capture temperature checks, because it is a requirement at the front end. So we were just wanting to make sure everyone was able to do that. And Cheryl, I see your question is right now you've got 10 students in a room and you could safely serve 12. Everyone needed to operate for a certain period of time before increasing and adding more children. And so that was one of the conversations that we have to have with you, if you're licensed, with your licensing rep, to make sure that you can go ahead and accommodate the additional children. No one should move beyond 10 unless they have already operated with 10, safely figured out everything that's needed, from cleaning and enhanced cleaning, keeping kids in one cohort with the same staff. All of those requirements needed to be done before we move to the next level. And so we just want to make sure that we're doing it in a timely fashion, and we're not moving too fast, that we're using information and data and looking back at ourselves before we move forward. Linda, are we beginning to think about home visiting programs? Yes, we are. One of the things that we're thinking about with home visiting, and we're looking and sharing and working with, and I know Tiffany's been doing it, and I thank her because she grabbed onto a task force, because I couldn't do all of them, and so she's been doing the home visiting task force for us. But one of the things that they begin to look at is, the ability to do home visits at 15-minute intervals and no more than that, so that you can get your eyes on your families. Yes, virtual home visits has been going on, but we're also saying that now with PPE, with guidance about 6 feet apart, with safety in mind, that if you are able to have your home visitors make a connection with a parent and set up a virtual visit, we want you to continue to do that. But we also want you to think about getting at most about 15 minutes of time where you can get your eyes on your parents and see how they're really doing. And guidance now, we're moving in that direction where our numbers are lower, where we're saying now that those very, very small snippets of time with parents, but still following that same guidance of PPE, 6 feet separation, making sure the parent has a mask on, making sure the home visitor has a mask on, making sure that we're still covering ourselves and that we're safe, that we can begin to do some of that. And we will, as I said earlier, we're sending out all kinds of guidance. Don't want to do it all in the same day and overwhelm you. But again, I bulleted a couple of things in the letter that I sent out, and one of those was about home visiting and the move now to trying to do the very, very small 15-minute intervals of visits with our family. If we offer
Grab and go option, can we count that child in COPA under the meal that they receive? Yeah, I mean, if you serve the child a meal to a child, then you can go ahead and count it.
Absolutely.
Ken, you're asking about the budget revision deadline for the federally funded programs. We haven't received any guidance yet from finance, but typically it's usually around October the 15th for contracts that are going to end November the 30th. But since you've asked the question, I'll be following up with our finance team to go ahead and see if we can give a definitive date in and around that, that final budget revision deadline. But at this point, at least October the 15th would be a good date for everybody. rate plus the fringe benefit should just about cut it. But if they're doing more, let us know, and we can definitely take a look at what you're doing or what you're suggesting.
Sorry, everyone. This is Tom. We lost sound for a second there, just due to doing this remotely. But now the sound is back, so you should be able to hear some more answers for the questions.
Thanks, Tom. I see a couple more from Ken, but I also know that we have to move on because, again, I'm going to duplicate many of the points that I'm saying to you because our almost 70 staff are also remote, and so we're having a meeting with them directly after this as well. So I'm going to answer a couple more questions, and then we will try to get the other answers out, either through CSD update, through memo fashion, but we will respond to you. Have we heard anything about continuous COVID-19 funding from the federal or state beyond December 2020, CARES and CCRG? We have not. We're trying to keep our hands on what's going on. We do know that the Senate is in now, looking at what they will approve. I know they are not meeting, there's no meeting of the minds in DC right now over a lot of this. I have not received anything from HHS or anyone about any additional funding. And again, the federal government has to approve any additional dollars before any additional dollars come out to the state. I do know that the state has received some funds, but as far as any additional funds, they're hoping, just like we are. In my conversation last week with the state, they're hoping to get additional dollars. And again, all of our hope rests with what happens in DC.
Do we have an estimated projection of when the quality improvement and COLA funding will be released for vouchering? Well, before we get it released for vouchering, we need to get you contracts in and around that. And so we're working on that first. We've received our notice of award for expansion and also CCP. So we're in the process of working on that, but we're still waiting on the base grant, Head Start and Early Head Start. And so that's why you guys haven't gotten anything yet. So as soon as we get the notice of award from the federal government, this will be coming soon.
I wanted to ask if you have a 5-year-old in COPA that has aged out of the parent is still letting him attend our school because the public school is not open. What do we do and how do we take attendance for that child? Actually, you can't take attendance for that child in COPA because our programs are age specific. They're children 0 to 3, children who would have aged out unless you were operating in a model that allowed for that. You won't be able to take attendance for that child. I also have to ask you to think about your license and whether or not you have a license to serve children over that age. If you have a program, for example, a school age program, and that child moves over to that program, but that child would not be age eligible in our programs and that we fund, and therefore they are not accountable in our system, and COPA would kick that child out because the child has aged out. Not kick the child out of your program, but the system is not set up. Outside of our CCAP side of COPA is the only place where children over age of 5 can be attended or any of that information can be captured. Not in our 0 to 5 program side is it allowed. So no, we won't be able to do that. It's something that you need to think about internally within your own program, within your license. And again, if you are serving that child in a classroom that's funded by us, then you have downed your enrollment by having that child in that program because that child is taking a funded seat. And so I really need you to think about that piece of it as well. Yes, we need you to make sure that you are doing the remote attendance at minimum 2 times a week. I say 5 times a week. If you're doing something with the child, you're doing something with the parent, I want you to capture each and every one of those times that you're doing it, but at minimum 2 times a week. Again, minimum. But what I say to you is parents need more context than that. When you are doing a remote activity with the child, that's a contact. Then you can follow up with the parent to find out how that's going. That's a contact. I just want us to make sure that we are doing everything that we're doing and we're counting everything. This is Head Start. If it's not in the system, it didn't happen. And so at minimum 2 times, I do know that we have some people that's been doing a lot more than that and have been capturing it in other forms, but now you are able to do it within the COPA attendance. Can you help us understand the value of a 15-minute home visit? My value of it is, and I understand it's a very, very small snippet, but we have many parents who we just need to get our eye on them. We just need to get our eye on them. They need to know that we're still there. That's the value of it for me, is that connection. I'm not saying that you're going to be able to do a lot of anything in 15 minutes. Absolutely not. That is not what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying, my value is to be able to see that parent to be able to see you. That parent needs that connection. Our parents need to be connected to us. Our parents that are bringing their children center-based have that. Our parents that are remote, what else can we do? And how else can we connect with them and make sure that they understand that we're still there with and for them? And if yours are doing 30-minute visits, that's fine. Again, I just want you to be careful. I want you to understand how you need to be safe. You need to have your PPE. They need to stay 6 feet apart. All of those things are guidance that we're giving, and we're trying to gear up into more, starting somewhere. And the base is 15 minutes. If you're doing 30 and you've been able to do 30 successfully, that's fine. We're going with the guidance that we've worked on with a team of other home visiting programs across our state, and we're saying we want to start somewhere. So the 15-minute was the first gauge, and then of course as we move forward, things are better in varying communities. Of course, we'll be doing more. The guidance for home visiting was not sent out. We are going to be sending out the guidance for home visiting and many other pieces of guidance. So as I started, I'm going to finish. Communicating is what we're going to be doing here as a team, making sure that everybody understands that we are all working together. And I know you need a lot of information from us, and we're going to be using every vehicle that we have afforded to us, which are these meetings, the CSD updates, and also we'll be sending out weekly blurbs and updates about different policies, procedures, and guidance. We're starting also to do our virtual meetings. Our education advisory is on the 16th. And so there will be many, many more opportunities, and we have a whole host of trainings that we're going to be doing. To the point of training, we are launching Ready Rosie. I mentioned that in the memo that I sent out. And so we have a whole host of trainings that we're going to be doing so that we can implement Ready Rosie. For those of you who have gone online to chicagoearlylearning.org on the resource tab, the pre-e-learning, those activities that are embedded in there came from this vendor, from Ready Rosie. They gave us a list of activities so that we can get some things out to our families now, because they're home, they're remote. Some additional resources also for you. But we are now ready to start rolling out Ready Rosie for you as another curriculum that you will have access to. But again, many, many trainings that will have to be done in order for everyone to understand that. In addition, and I'm going to let Tiffany talk a little bit more about this when she's been a little more up close and personal, is that we're actually going to move to the cloud for creative curriculum, which is a great opportunity. So we'll close with that, but go ahead, Tiffany.
So we're really excited. And I don't know if maybe the pandemic had us thinking differently as we needed to shift with working with our families, especially with the stay-at-home order by the governor back in March. Got us to thinking, what else can we do? As you guys know, our creative curriculum kits are several boxes. And once our programs got shut down, I don't know about you, but I don't know who is necessarily carrying their creative curriculum kits in the trunk of their car. Probably not a lot of us. And so what we wanted to do, we teamed with our partners at Teaching Strategies to be able to bring you Creative Curriculum Cloud. And so everything that you can access in those kits, you will be able to access online from anywhere. Amazing. So whether you're teaching at home, doing e-learning, virtual sessions, webinars, etc., if you are sitting on a beach and you want to go ahead and sit poolside, you can go ahead and access creative curriculum online. We're really excited about this. I think that this is going to open up so many different opportunities to be able to access those materials and not feel like you have to lug around boxes and boxes of curriculum. Included in that will be things like Mighty Minutes as well. There's going to be other snippets of information that's going to be included, but this is a win for us. So I want leaders to know that this is coming. We have an Ed advisory meeting that's coming on September the 16th, and we're going to be talking to the Ed coordinators at that time about this awesome, amazing resource. And so we wanted to make sure it's coming, so that way you can go ahead and inform your site directors, your Ed coordinators, and ultimately, of course, the teachers who will have access to this valuable information. So I think that's great news. So thank you, Rachel, for even allowing us to have to roll this out. We really have had to be very flexible during the pandemic, and this is one of the ways that we've been adapting to learning on the go.
And so as we all know, we've moved into a totally new world of how we do everything that we do, and making sure as teachers are doing everything that they can to support children's learning, they needed access to this curriculum. And again, it's not portable. Those boxes are not portable. Well, now they have access and they'll be able to point to the cloud, and working with mom at home and some of your questions about what kinds of things. It's working with mom and giving her some ideas of things, but being able to access them instantaneously, which is what we want to have happen. Being able to move to create a curriculum cloud, we hope will help us also as we're gearing up and doing our fall and winter and spring assessments, because you'll have access to curriculum in an instant where we can continue to update and work with families to make sure that parents are getting what they need as far as activities, but teachers are able to be a lot more planful instantaneously, and not only when they're able to get into their classroom and into those boxes. And so again, we're going to continue to think about all the kind of ways that we can get tools and resources to you. This is just one of those that we're very, very happy that we're going to be able to open up and have available. And again, September 16th, they're going to be talking about it. Deb Zapalik, who is our contact, will be at that meeting, and we'll be able to talk about this and also outcomes and assessment and capturing data and different pieces of documentation for the fall and going forward for all of our seasons that we seem to be in that have extended itself into fall and perhaps into spring, where we still need to be doing our documentation. And so we want to help your teachers. We're coming up and looking at all the different ways. We know we're not done yet. We're going to be as creative as we can. You have been out there. We thank you for everything that you've done to continue to work in this new environment, and we'll continue on our side to find resources and adapt and find ways to still get more and more out to you. So we're hoping what we're putting together you find helpful. With that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for today. Thank you, everyone, for spending time with us this morning. We are a few minutes over, so I thank you for your patience. I do know that there were some additional questions. We'll look at those and to see what other responses we can answer. So again, thanks, everyone. Have a great Thursday and a happy Friday and a safe weekend, and we will be talking very, very soon. Take care, everyone.